The third race of the weekend for the Ginetta GT Academy is only a few minutes away. The cars are just being released from the assembly area around to the grid on what is still a damp and slippery Oulton Park International Circuit. We've had two races, two different winners, two very different races as well, really. Yesterday's dry race sort of settled at the first corner in a way, in that our eventual race winner, James Nicholas, hit the front at turn one and never really looked back. But race two, because of the inclement weather, the difficult track conditions, we did have a few more dramas, and it led to a slightly more topsy-turvy race. And hopefully the good crowd of spectators who have fought their way into Oulton Park today are in for another treat as our third Academy race is set to get going. It will be a grid based upon the race 2 results, so Mike Taylor and Luke Shaw share the front row of the grid. Harry Gamble coming from third. Now, he really was the star of the show in the second race. In fact, you could argue in both races, really. He charged after James Nicholas in race 1 on Saturday, just came up short. You feel that with another lap, he might have been able to steal the victory away from James. But in race 2, Harry Gamble really looked promising to take the victory, but dropped back early on after an off-up at the Shell hairpin, courtesy of contact, actually, with James Nicholas, and fought his way back through to third position. Now, I've just heard a truly outrageous statement in my ear, which is that there might be some blue sky over the Oulton Park circuit. Not at my end of it, but yes, okay, maybe a small window approaching from Old Hall. So let's get the slicks on, everyone, then. I think it's going to be a dry race. Actually, we can't do that in GT Academy. They don't run on a full slick. It is a semi-slick in the dry. They've got new tyres, actually, for 2024, both dry and wet tyres. And the fact that they've got a different wet tyre is new as well, really. In previous seasons, it's been a almost road tyre that they've run on, and it's the same tyre in dry or wet conditions, but now they have got a dedicated Pirelli wet tyre, and that will certainly be the tyre of choice once again this afternoon, as it was earlier on today. So the safety car will lead them around, hopefully for just the one green flag lap, and then we will have a 2x2 rolling start. Only the juniors these days have standing starts amongst the Ginetta Championships. So Mike Taylor will be hoping that he can use that to hold on to the advantage off the line. Mike will argue that he should have won yesterday's race as well. Certainly started well from pole position, but slipped backwards after an early moment and could only finish 13th in the end. But made good on that, learned his lessons for race 2, and was dominant, perhaps not the word, but certainly quick enough to fend everyone off, and grateful that Harry Gamble had been off the road in the early stages, I think, because had Harry not slipped off the road and not had to fight his way through from, I think, almost outside of the top 10 at one point, then Mike might have had a slightly tougher job. But he will start from pole position once again. It's an all-rookie front row. Mike Taylor on pole, and Luke Shaw starting alongside him. Row 2 then for Harry Gamble, if he has a clean start, should be the favourite to win, really, with Julian Wantling, the first non-rookie, therefore in the GTA class, starting alongside Marc Elman and Peter Thompson make up row number 3. Fourth row, Paul Thomas and Thomas Balfe, who had a bit of a delay to the start of his race after a spin on the green flag lap earlier on today. Mike West starts 9th ahead of Phil Bugatti to complete the top 10. Then James Nicholas won on his debut on Saturday, could only manage 11th earlier on today, struggling maybe to learn the wet conditions. Ali Al-Jafali similarly had his dramas in race 2. A couple of spins meant he was 12th. Emma Tomlinson and Amy Tomlinson start on row number 7. Both of them have been in the wars at various times this weekend, with Lucy Hodgson and Gareth Thomas making up the back row of the grid. So there goes James Nicholas, the Union Flag liveried Palmer Sport liveried car, I suppose I should say. He carries the Palmer Sport livery because he won the Palmer Sport Academy event only about 3 weeks ago, during which he took his ARDS test, picked up his race licence, and won in his very first motor race on Saturday. Wet conditions are another challenge altogether. These cars don't have ABS, they don't have traction control, and you might think that's a little bit strange for what is supposed to be a beginner's category, but you know, if you make it too easy for drivers, give them all of these driving aids, then they're not really learning how to drive the car, are they? This definitely leaves them with nowhere to hide, and it is only the very best drivers on the grid who are able to handle the cars in these conditions and be up there fighting for race wins. Makes it all the more impressive, therefore, that it was an all-rookie podium in race number 2 earlier on today. With Marc Elman, which yes, it's just been pointed out to me, is a left-hand drive Ginetta G56. You don't get many of those, so not sure what the story is there. I have to try and chat to Mark at Silverstone next time and find out, but he'll have a truly unique perspective of the race, and we get to enjoy it with him with the onboard camera from the third row of the grid. So 2x2 towards Lodge Corner. There we are, on board with Mark in what should be the driver's seat normally on the right-hand side of the car. And he will be starting on the right-hand side of the road as well, the inside of row 3. But on pole position, Mike Taylor with Luke Shaw alongside. And Mike knows the importance here of getting into Old Hall Corner first. Yes, for track position, yes, for visibility with the spray, but also to try and keep a car between himself and the very, very, very quick Harry Gamble, who is starting directly behind him from third. They rumble their way underneath the spectator bridge. The red lights go out now. And we're away and racing for the final time in the Ginetta GT Academy here at Oulton Park. And the pole sitter Mike Taylor makes a good jump, but can Gamble come through with him on the inside line? He's up the inside of Luke Shaw, but Luke had the grip round the outside line and hangs on to second position. One or two of them running a bit beyond track limits, but actually a fairly clean run through Old Hall Corner, all things considered. And they now barrel steeply downhill into the treacherous cascades. The inside line move made by Peter Thompson there, actually a defensive move to try and keep Paul Thomas in the red, black and white number 12 car behind him. Then it's Thomas Balfe behind him. But they run single file for the most part anyway, down towards Island Bend, with Mike Taylor still leading the way. So as they head towards Shell, there is the Julian Wantling machine at number 3. Which has held on, I think, to its fourth position. Marc Elman behind, and they're the top two GTA class drivers. Again, no difference in cars between the classes, simply driver experience levels. Side by side behind them as well. That's the 77 on the inside into Britain's, and that's Gareth Thomas. Now, he started stone dead last on the grid, and he's passed about 5 or 6 cars already. I think the latest of his victims, Ali Al-Jafali, who so far has stayed out of trouble. That was Luke Shaw going straight on from second place, straight on down at the Hislop chicane. And Luke Shaw, where's he going to rejoin? He's not allowed to gain time. And I don't think he has he? Because I think he's dropped behind Harry Gamble. Now, Luke won't be very happy about that. But I actually suspect that Mike Taylor's going to be even grumpier, because that means that now his buffer back to Harry Gamble has gone. There's a bit of clear road where Luke Shaw once was, but Harry really ought to have the pace, I think, to bridge that, based upon what we saw earlier on, especially because the leader is off. That is Taylor off at Druids, and just like that, Harry Gamble goes from third to first and didn't have to put any effort in at all, because both cars ahead of him have thrown themselves at the scenery. So that means Harry Gamble leads at Lodge. Luke Shaw is back up into second place, and Mike Taylor, for the second time this weekend, has managed to take defeat from the jaws of victory, perhaps. It wasn't going to be an easy win, this, but he at least had that track position advantage until he went off at Druids Corner. So that changes the complexion of the race now, at least at the front of the field. Where is Taylor is the next question. He crosses the line in 10th. Here he comes. So there went the number 33 car through shots. So 10th position. What recovery drive can he put in now? The Tomlinsons there. Emma Tomlinson, the inside of Mike West coming out of Old Hall Corner, but Mike manages to fend her off. Down through Cascades Corner, but a big drama for Mike Taylor then from the lead of the race off the road at Druids. Oh, and he really did it properly. Arrives into shot backwards at Druids. There's a full 360 through the gravel. Look in the distance, loses it between the two parts of Druids, splashes through the water splash, and did well, actually, to keep the car out of the barrier, perhaps through luck more than judgment, but no major damage seemingly done to the car. And he will now try and launch a fight back from 10th position. He's right in behind, actually, Saturday's winner now, James Nicholas, who is 9th at the end of lap number 1. And on the tail of Phil McGarty. There go the top two then, down into Hislops. At the moment, actually, Harry Gamble not really shaking off Luke Shaw, who does at least make it into the Hislop chicane this time. Then it's Julian Wantling third. It is 4th Marc Elman. It's 5th place for the number 6 of Peter Thompson. And then wait for it, here come possibly two of the fastest cars at various points this weekend. James Nicholas, number 24, and 33, Mike Taylor, who wants to try and find a way through ASAP to try and begin now this recovery drive that he is on. Under the bridge they go. Here comes Marc Elman challenging Julian Wantling for a place in the podium, but also for the GTA class win, in inverted commas. Not sure whether they get a trophy for winning their class. They certainly don't get any more points as far as I'm aware. It's the overall finishing positions that matter, but there is a separate points table, I think, for the two classes. Rookie drivers, though, regularly are up there battling for outright championship honours. So Mike Taylor then comes through Lodge, having safely negotiated Druids this time. He's really stuck watching James Nicholas have a go at Phil McGarty, isn't he? That is the battle going on into Old Hall Corner, and that is the position changing hands as up the inside goes Nicholas, and he made that look pretty easy in the end. Very striking livery, isn't it, on Phil McGarty's car, the blue with the fluorescent yellow. Striking as it is, it's not going that quickly. He's about to lose another place as Emma Tomlinson loses control at Old Hall Corner, and now is she about to become, I think, the first victim this weekend of the newly installed gravel trap at Old Hall Corner. I personally haven't seen another car in that gravel trap yet, and I think Emma might be the first that needs recovering from there, because that car looked fairly well stuck to me. Place gained there by Gareth Thomas now at the expense of McGarty as well. So McGarty is slipping backwards, losing 3 places in 2 corners there. First to Nicholas, then to Mike Taylor, and now to Gareth Thomas as well. So that will knock him back out of the top 10. But did Emma Tomlinson get going again from Old Hall Corner? I don't think she did. So that car still stuck at the edge of the road. And that, I fear, is going to lead to a safety car period. We'll wait and see. The leaders, though, heading through the Hislop chicane already. This is the fight for third. And still Julian Wantling ahead of Marc Elman, the top 2 in the GTA class as well. Oh, another one off, and that's Amy Tomlinson. So not a good lap for the Tomlinsons, with Emma stuck in the gravel at Old Hall, Amy stuck in the grass at Shell, and the safety car having to break out from the pit lane once more, as the 2 cars now both need recovering from dangerous positions. So there you can see that new gravel trap installed over the winter, one of a few modifications made to Oulton Park actually over the winter. They put some new curbing in at a few different parts of the track to try and help with drainage, I think, partly, and also want to deter drivers from corner cutting. And if they do, at least they're not tearing up the grass too badly. But that gravel trap at Old Hall was always likely to catch somebody. It's there to slow them down and stop them so that they don't make contact with the barrier, which of course does a lot more damage to car and barrier than simply skating off into a gravel trap. But unfortunately, this is going to lead to a few more race neutralisations, I think. There is Emma Tomlinson's car, and only just made it into the gravel. But it is stuck fast, and I think we're going to see Emma getting out of the car before too much longer. So the safety car is leaving Cascades. Harry Gamble actually having an easier time of it in this race than I anticipated he would. I mentioned earlier on he wasn't really getting away from Luke Shaw, but actually the lap that we just completed was likely going to be a very fast lap, possibly the first sub-2 minute lap of the race, because he'd done purple sectors 1 and 2 and was starting to leave Luke Shaw in his, I was going to say in his dust, in his spray really is perhaps more appropriate. Although the track conditions are improving, aren't there? There is not a lot of standing water now, at least at this end of the circuit, from where the patch of blue sky was and still is approaching. So I'm not suggesting it's going to dry out before the end of the day, but it's not freezing cold out there. The ambient temperature is just high enough that we should now hopefully start to see the conditions getting better. Could make for some interesting tyre choices in the second half of the British GT race that is still to come today. So through Britons with, yes, sunshine glinting off the bodywork of the cars now as they prepare to go past one of the really popular spectator vantage points around the circuit. There you can see them all on the left-hand side of the shot. Great place to come and watch racing Oulton Park. No matter where you go, you've always got a really spectacular view of the track. You can often get quite close to the track as well and really get a feel for the speed of particularly some of these 1-make GT categories. And unfortunately, neither of the Tomlinsons going particularly quickly at the moment. Both cars still stuck fast in their 2 resting places. Emma at Old Hall, Amy's at Shell Hairpin. So Harry Gamble leads, Luke Shaw second, Julian Wantling in third, fourth Marc Elman, 5th place for Peter Thompson, and in 6th position, the number 12 of Paul Thomas, 7th Thomas Balve, 8th then for James Nicholas, 9th Mike Taylor, and 10th position completing the top 10 is number 77, which is Gareth Thomas from the back of the grid. So he's made some good ground in this race. He's behind two drivers who really want to make some ground up. James Nicholas and Mike Taylor. Mike will be kicking himself for that spin that he had up at Druids, which has surely counted him out of any real chance of a podium. Now that's good news. Amy Tomlinson back on the road. The bad news is she's brought half of the new gravel trap at Old Hall Corner with her, so the track is not going to be particularly grippy when they next get round there. They've also moved Amy's car almost out of the way now at Shell. It's back onto solid ground, and hopefully will be dragged behind the barrier somewhere pretty swiftly. So I reckon one more lap behind the safety car. We're going to tick into the second half of the race before that happens. So it'll be interesting to see what happens upon the restart. I don't see a huge amount of scope for change at the front. I think that Harry Gamble has demonstrated already that he's got good speed to lead the race and probably get away. But Luke Shaw, will he be able to go with him? Will he fall under pressure from Julian Wantling? Wantling and Elman have seemed pretty evenly matched in this race, haven't they? Which they haven't really so far this weekend. Marc Elman didn't, he dropped back a little bit from Julian in the earlier race. It was actually Amy Tomlinson who finished second in the AM class, in the GTA class, I should say, in race 1 on Saturday. Amy, I think, another driver who has struggled a little bit in the wetter races. So Harry Gamble with a third place earlier on today, a second place yesterday, but of course the two race winners have had very inconsistent weekends. Luke Shaw really has been Mr. Consistency, a 5th on Saturday and a 2nd earlier on today. So if things were to finish as they are now, it would be, I suspect, Harry and Luke who would be at the top of the championship table. Might seem a little bit early to be talking about championship points, but they all count the same. Every race counts. There are, I believe, dropped scores in this championship. Yes, the lowest round of scoring will be dropped at the end of the year, so you can have one bad round, but in a championship like this, where we are dealing largely with novice races, you can be expected that results can go up and down a bit over the course of the year, and that's what always makes it a fascinating series to watch. Differently this year, though, in previous years there have tended to be 1 or 2 drivers who have started the year quite a bit faster than everybody else, and they've maintained that through the season, so it's often been close between those 2 drivers. This year seems a bit different, though. We've seen across the 3 races this weekend there are probably half a dozen drivers capable of battling right at the front and scoring good points on a regular basis, so it could be a fascinating championship tussle that will likely go right down to the end of the season on the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Lights out on the safety car. It is about to join the pair of Tomlinsons, who have both had their cars recovered to the pit lane, which means the track is clear and we are good to go racing again with just under 8 minutes of this 3rd and final race of the weekend for the Ginetta GT Academy remaining. Harry Gamble hits the accelerator out of Lodge Corner, then gets us back underway here at Oulton Park. Luke Shaw with a good restart, goes with him and stays only a car length or so back as we head across the timing line. He pulls to the inside just to try and get a clearer view of Old Hall, maybe trying to distract Harry Gamble as well. But it doesn't work. Harry will retain the lead through the first corner, and off into the gravel goes Phil McGarty and into the barriers. And that's the 2nd victim of the new gravel trap at Old Hall Corner. That car did not want to turn at all. So I wonder whether he was fighting some sort of issue with the car. Of course, he will have lost some tyre temperature behind the safety car. That could have maybe worked against him there too, but that looked a little bit odd. The car just seemed to lock up and go straight on. Anyway, we're racing for the time being. No safety car yet. Up the inside there goes Mike Taylor past Thomas Balfe, and that will put him into 8th position. And right with him comes Gareth Thomas, except he locks up and he goes straight on. He's in the gravel, just nuzzles up against the Recticel barrier. And yet again, we've got a car off at Old Hall, we've got a car off at Shell, and we know what happened the last time that was the case. So we'll see how long they let them continue racing, but this could be almost it, really. It took us a good few minutes to get those 2 cars out of the way before. We've got 6.5 minutes left of this race, and there you go. Just like clockwork, the safety car is back out again. I remind you, these cars have no ABS, and particularly when you're behind the safety car, you can lose temperature, not only in the tyres, but in the brakes as well, and it makes it very easy to snatch the front brakes, and I suspect that's what happened to both of those drivers actually there, to Phil McGarty at Old Hall Corner and to Gareth Thomas up at Shell. who ironically had just been faster than anybody else through the speed trap at the end of the Lakeside Straight, but carried that speed on a bit too far into the Shell hairpin. So, Harry Gamble, once again, slows the pace. Here's a replay of Phil McGarty's moment. Did he lock up? I think he did snatch the right front, didn't he? I think that was just cold brakes, honestly, from running around behind the safety car. And here comes Gareth Thomas, same thing again, snatches the right front. And from there, there's nothing you can do. You can't turn the car. But I do think that running around behind the safety car perhaps had something to do with that. Again, inexperienced drivers, so perhaps they've not really dealt with that many safety car periods before. It might not have even occurred to them that the brakes need to be pumped constantly when you're behind the safety car, keep the heat in the system, and then they will work properly for you when you get back up to full racing speed. So, the safety car rejoins the circuit. We've got 5¼ minutes to go. I'm not sure whether we might get one lap. We might get one lap before the checkered flag flies. It would be a shame to end this race under safety car because we've had some good racing from the Academy drivers this weekend. And whilst Harry Gamble, like I said, should be good for the victory, there was some storylines still to play out a bit further back. Julian Wantling versus Marc Elman for one for the GTA class lead, but there is Harry Gamble. Probably the only person here at Oulton Park not frustrated by the second appearance of a safety car, because whilst he had the speed to lead comfortably, in these conditions nothing is comfortable, nothing is easy. Now, McGarty's car has not yet been greeted by a recovery vehicle, but Gareth Thomas's car is out of the gravel already, near enough. So that's one car out of the way. But Phil McGarty's car is going to be there for a little while longer, I think. We are limited on JCBs that we have at our disposal. I think there are at least 2, though, so they should be able to send one to Oulton. There we go, right on cue. OK, so I reckon this car is going to be out of the way by the end of this lap. The question then is how long it takes them to complete another lap behind the safety car, as to whether we'll get round for a one-lap dash for the cash, so to speak. There is the not quite pristine white number 77 of Gareth Thomas back underway. You can see there the amount of gravel that gets released onto the circuit, and that is not sand or just dirt as it might look on camera. They are pretty large stones, and when they end up on the track, it's like being on ice if you find yourself driving over it at speed. So he'll be doing his best to stay off the racing line, but obviously that's easier said than done. McGarty's car is almost out of harm's way too. It's not quite out of the gravel yet, but it's at least partly onto the tarmac, so the marshals can finish the job for themselves. In fact, they've given him the thumbs up to drive away, but wouldn't advise going forward, Phil, because that will put you back in a world of trouble. But of course now the cars are out of the way, but the recovery vehicles and marshals need to get themselves out of the way as well, and that will take a little while longer. 3 minutes to go. Safety car lap has got to be over 3 minutes, surely, unless the safety car driver can really put their foot down. And up the pace, get us back in time for one more lap. Marc Elman then, we're on board with Julian Wantling, I think, there, with Marc Elman right behind him. And Marc with his distinctive dark green and yellow livery, and that looked like a checkered flag to me. It was a checkered flag because they've realised they're not going to get round for another lap of racing, so the race ends a lap early, and Harry Gamble, not in the way that he'd have liked to have done it, picks up the win, but it is a win nonetheless. Finally, he thinks he gets that win. He's been very close all weekend, but this time around he gets to see the checkered flag first, with Luke Shaw in second position and Julian Wantling third, complete or at the top of the GTA rankings. So that was unfortunately not the ideal way to end the race, but Harry Gamble will be satisfied, I think, with his weekend's work. A little bit more consistency maybe to come from him as the season goes on, but we know Harry will be a fast learner. He's bound to be, isn't he? And the Elite Motorsport team will give him all the guidance that he needs. We'll head to Silverstone next time at the end of April, hopefully with slightly better weather. And Silverstone Grand Prix circuit should provide some really good racing, I think, for these GT Academy cars. So we'll look forward to having you all with us again for that second event of the season, where perhaps Julian Wantling can continue his winning form. Julian has won the GTA class in all 3 races this weekend. the number 3 car will be leading the championship therefore, and also the top Chairman's Cup driver in all of those races as well, I believe. So that was the GTA class on screen. There is the overall running order at the flag. Harry Gamble, the winner, Luke Shaw second, and Julian Wantling comes home in third. Marc Elman fourth, ahead of Peter Thompson fifth, Paul Thomas sixth, and James Nicholas in seventh place. Mike Taylor, Thomas Balfe and Mike West completed the top 10, with Ali Al-Jafali 11th, Lucy Hodgson 12th, and Gareth Thomas the first of the non-finishers. He was joined in the gravel trap at various times by Phil McGarty, Amy Tomlinson and Emma Tomlinson, all of whom unfortunately failed to reach the flag. So our third Ginetta GT Academy race of the weekend saw from pole position Mike Taylor attempting to repeat his race 2 victory from earlier on this morning. For a while it looked good. He managed to hold on to the lead through Old Hall Corner, and to his benefit Luke Shaw able to hold on to second as well, meaning Harry Gamble was still only third as they headed towards Cascades for the first time. The spray was pretty intense at the start of the race, although conditions improved slightly as the 20 minutes drew on, but that didn't mean that it wasn't treacherous out there, as Mike Taylor discovered up at Druids. He lost control of the car, skated through the gravel trap, and after Luke Shaw had already been off at Hislops, that promoted Harry Gamble to a lead he would retain until the flag. Old Hall Corner was the scene of drama, first for Emma Tomlinson, who spun into the gravel. Amy, moments later, was off at Shell, and that brought about the first of 2 safety cars in short succession. On the restart, Phil McGarty locked the brakes into Old Hall Corner, skated into the tyre barriers, and then moments later, Gareth Thomas, attempting a move around the outside of Thomas Balfe at Shell, did exactly the same thing. With that, the safety car was brought onto the circuit for the second time, and with not enough time to restart the race, the checkered flag was thrown, and Harry Gamble was the winner. 3 races, 3 different winners from the opening round of the 2024 Ginetta GT Academy.